everyone and welcome back. Today we will be discussing three very popular 17 caliber cartridges and to try to help you to determine which one might be best for you. They are the 17 HMR, the 17 Winchester Super Mag, sometimes known as the 17 WSM, and also the 17 Hornet. We're going to take an in-depth look at each of these cartridges with the cheat sheet that I have created, and then we will look at some real-world footage of what all of these numbers look like when they are taken off of the paper and apply them in real shootings. I realize that these three cartridges have different bullet weights to choose from, but to try to simplify the matter and to try to compare apples to apples, we're going to stick with the 20 grain bullet weight across the board for each of these three rounds. Really hope that you like the video. If you do, please click the like button and subscribe. And as always, we really look forward to your comments. Thank you again. Okay, what we're looking at here is the 22 long rifle. I put that in there just for reference sake. Moving from left to right, now we have the 17 HMR, the 17 Winchester Super Mag, and the 17 Hornet. Alright, well now that we have a refresher course on what each of these three rounds looks like compared to one another, let's take a look at the cheat sheet. Got most of it covered up here. As we start from left to right, we've got the 17 HMR, the 17 Winchester Super Mag, and the 17 Hornet. Well, I'd like for you to start to look at what the BC is. That's the Ballistic Coefficient. The Ballistic Coefficient is basically a measure of how efficient a bullet is at cutting through the wind and how efficient it is at hanging on to the speed that it starts off with. The higher the BC number, the better speed and energy a bullet will have downrange. So the 17 HMR 20 grain bullet, you'll notice, has a different ballistic coefficient than the 20 grain of the 17 Winchester Super Mag and the 17 Hornet. The reason for that is because the 17 HMR, their 20 grain comes in a hollow point only. Whereas the 17 WSM and the 17 Hornet, you'll notice that there was a red tip on there. That is a ballistic tip, so it improves the ballistic coefficient of those rounds. We're going to start by taking a look at the 17 HMR. Let's see if we can cover up some of these numbers that we don't need just yet. Bear with me a moment here. Okay, at the muzzle, so when that round first leaves the barrel, it's traveling at 2,375 feet per second with 250 foot-pounds of energy, which is rather substantial, especially for such a little bullet. Now, if you're varmint hunting and you're, looking to shoot coyotes, 250 foot-pounds is a lot of energy. However, we don't shoot these animals 2 inches away from the barrel. I don't think any of us are just that skilled at calling in coyotes, unfortunately. Maybe we shoot them at 50, 60, 80 yards, 100 yards. So it's important to know what kind of energy are these bullets going to arrive at when they get to the animal. Now, as far as predator hunting, any bullet will kill these animals. A bullet is still a bullet, but it's important to remember the 7 times rule. I like to think that whatever that animal weighs, I want my bullet to arrive with 7 times that weight in terms of energy. So if it's a coyote that weighs 30 pounds, 30 times 7, 210, I want that bullet to arrive with 210 foot-pounds of energy so that that animal isn't running off. And that would just be a starting number. Anything above 210 is even better, obviously. So if you're shooting a fox, maybe the fox only weighs 10 pounds, you would want that bullet to arrive with at least 70 foot-pounds of energy. Bobcat, maybe the bobcat weighs 20 pounds. Again, you're looking to have that bullet arrive with at least 140 foot-pounds of energy at its arrival. So as far as the 17 HMR goes, when we get up to 50 yards, it's dropped from 2375 down to 2,088 feet per second, still delivering about 194 foot-pounds of energy. So that's getting to where maybe you don't really want to be shooting coyotes even at 50 yards with that 17 HMR. Moving out to 100 yards, you're dropped down to about 1823 foot-pounds of energy, or 1823 feet per second rather, and 148 foot-pounds of energy. Okay, next we're going to maybe fast forward a little bit on this cheat sheet. We'd like for us to look all the way down to about, still looking at the 17 HMR, right around the 300 to 350 yard mark. You'll notice that at 300 yards, that little bullet is still just above the speed of sound. But by 350 yards, it's now below the speed of sound. So somewhere between 3 and 350 is where that bullet is going transonic. Remember that whenever a bullet does drop below the speed of sound, it goes transonic. There's a certain wobble to it, and it really loses a lot of its accuracy at that point. And for that reason, we did not go any further with filling out the chart for the 17 HMR. While we're still on the subject of bullets staying supersonic, this is the middle column. You'll notice that the 17 Winchester Super Mag is staying above the speed of sound even out to 500 yards, and the 17 Hornet easily above the speed of sound out there at 500 yards. Okay, next up we're going to take a closer look at the 17 Winchester Super Mag. You'll notice that muzzle velocity is 3,000 feet per second. That's a substantial increase from the 17 HMR. Notice the foot-pounds, 400 foot-pounds compared to 250. Now at the muzzle, that's a 60% increase of energy. But also, please remember with the higher ballistic coefficient, as we go down range, you're going to see that the true impact is going to be even greater than 60%. For example, when you compare 335 foot-pounds of energy at 50 yards, to 194 foot-pounds of energy, that's actually a 72% increase. When we go further out, you're looking at 278 foot-pounds of energy for the 17 Winchester Super Mag at 100 yards. Compare that to 148 foot-pounds of energy for the 17 Hornety Magnum rimfire, the 17 HMR. Now you're looking at 88% more energy. Going further, 150 yards. Now you're looking at 107% more energy. And at 200 yards, now you're looking at 124% more energy, so it's basically double the energy at 200 yards. All right, next up we've got the 17 Hornet with its initial velocity of 3,650 feet per second. That's easily the fastest of these three cartridges. 591 foot-pounds. Compare that over here to the 17 HMR at 250. It's easily double the starting energy. Out at 50 yards, still basically it's got about 500 foot-pounds of energy at 50 yards. 100 yards, 420 foot-pounds of energy, comfortably enough to take out a coyote. Again, you want to remember shot placement, and if you don't hit them right, they could still run off on you, but if you hit them right, they shouldn't go very far at all. Out there at 150 yards, 353 foot-pounds of energy, as you can see, still really cooking at 2,818 feet per second. You compare that with maybe 1,582 feet per second at the 17 HMR, and that's really a substantial difference in speed. When you're getting out here to, let's move all the way down to about 250 yards, that 17 Hornet still has 243 foot-pounds of energy, which is above that 210 number that we talked about earlier. If you had a 30-pound coyote, 7 times 30, 210, you want to stay above that 210 number. When you get out to 300 yards of the 17 Hornet, you're looking at about 200 foot-pounds of energy, although that still is roughly 4 times the energy of a 17 HMR and almost double the energy of the 17 Winchester Super Mag. Once you start getting down to about 200 foot-pounds of energy, that really may not be enough to drop a coyote where he stands, so you probably want to keep that at about the 250 yard mark, whereas at the 17 Winchester Super Mag, you're at about the 150 yard mark. So you've got about 100 extra yards of difference with the 17 Hornet compared to the 17 Winchester Super Mag in terms of your ability to take out a coyote comfortably where he stands. Alright, as you've noticed, I've got some of these numbers circled here. The 17 WSM is circled because I shot a water jug. In fact, I shot two water jugs that were sitting next to each other back to back from 50 yards with the 17 WSM. When that bullet arrives, it's probably arriving in the neighborhood of 2750 feet per second. Whatever you're about to see, it's safe to say that that exact same experiment could be duplicated if I were using a 17 Hornet and shooting from 150 yards, because the numbers are very similar. In fact, the 17 Hornet probably would do an even more impressive job on the water jugs from 150 than what the 17 WSM does from 50 yards. Okay, once again we'll be shooting a 1 gallon jug of water at 50 yards distance. This will be the 20 grain 17 Winchester Super Mag, coming out of the Savage B-Mag heavy barrel 24-inch barrel rifle. And down there I actually have not one water jug set up, but I actually have a water jug set up right behind it. My theory is that this little bullet is so violent and it's so explosive that it may dump all of its energy right away upon hitting that first water jug, and it may or may not get into that second water jug right behind it. So we're about to find out. Okay, well, I'm approaching the two water jugs right now. The first one was pretty well destroyed by the 20 grain Winchester Super Mag, but my theory held true. That little bullet dumped all of its energy into this first 1 gallon milk container filled with water, leaving the second one behind it untouched. So if you're looking for a round that's going to penetrate a little better, you better go with the 25 grain. Those will get through. Certainly the first one. It may not get through the second one, but you can see that it just really demolished this milk container pretty good here. But thanks for watching.